Om Shri Ganeshaya Namaha. Om Shri Saraswatyai Namaha. Om Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. Samasta Jana Kalyane Niratam Karunamayam Namami Chinmayan Devam Sadgurum Brahma Vidvaram Samacharana Saroja Sandra Neelambudabham जघननिहितपाणिं मण्डनं मण्डनानां तरुणतुलसीमालां कन्दरं कञ्जनेत्रं सदयधवलहासं विठ्ठलं चिन्तयामि विठ्ठलं चिन्तयामि 119. How much should we appreciate your good luck? The Lord Krishna, by reciting whose name we have become purified and respected throughout the world, has taken birth as your son. The Lord Krishna is always staying in your house. Therefore, I don't see any other person as fortunate as you. O Vasudeva, from your name, the name of Sri Krishna as Vasudeva is derived, and when a person remembers that name, he becomes purified. There is one shloka, Varshaji.
त्वया परमकल्याणः पुण्यश्रवणकीर्तनः स्मारितो भगवानद्य देवो नारायणो मम.
Meaning of the verse. You have reminded me today of the Almighty Lord God Narayana, the most auspicious God, whose name when heard and sung brings great spiritual merit. 122. You have reminded me of that God Narayana by praising whose good qualities and remembering whose name the bondage of mundane life is cut. Therefore, may your speech be always pure. 123. O Vasudeva, may your life be blessed because by listening to your question, Narayana has become manifest in my heart. Thus, you have greatly obliged me. 124. By hearing what Narada said, someone may say he had earlier forgotten Narayana and that he had remembered him after Vasudeva asked the question. 125. But those who have doubt in their mind should be considered as intent upon killing themselves. Please see what Shuka is explaining. So says Eknathi. 126. In the pit of fire, there is already fire burning, but when we pour ghee on it, it flares up. Similarly, when questions are asked with great love, even the adept becomes happier. 127. When the listener becomes very happy in his devotional sentiments, the adept, the master who is telling the story, becomes more eager. He who understands this secret of sweetness of listening really knows. 128. Vasudeva has asked such a question by the answer of which persons, free men or seekers for freedom, and ordinary people also experience the peace through Bhagavata way of life, and therefore even Narada becomes very joyful. 129. And in order to impart the knowledge about the way of life with supporting evidence, Narada began to tell the earlier history.
अत्राप्युदाहरन्तीमम् इतिहासं पुरातनम् आर्षभाणाञ्च संवादम् विदेहस्य महात्मनः.
Meaning of the verse. Wise narrate even now as an old history the dialogue of the sons of Rishabha and the great Videha, Janaka. 130. Earlier in the history, some kind of questions was asked by Janaka and the answers to it were given by 9 sons of Rishabha. Narada said, I am going to tell you the whole history of the inspection of Bhagavat way of life. 131. But you will ask, where are the sons of Rishabha? So I will tell you their ancestral lineage. They were born in a great family, and in those 9, they were great abiding faith in the absolute Brahman.
प्रियव्रतो नाम सुतः मनोस्वायं भुवस्य यः तस्याग्निध्रस्ततो नातिः ऋषभस्तत्सुतः स्मृतः.
Meaning of the verse, Priyavrata was the son of Swayambhuva Manu. Agnidra was the son of Priyavrata. Nabhi was the later son, and Rishabha was his son. It is thus remembered. 132. Swayambhu Manu had a son called Priyavrata, whose son was Agnidra, who was very famous. His son in turn was Nabhi. They were all belonging to the solar dynasty. 133. From Nabhi, Rishabha, who was the glory of knowledge, was born. He was partial manifestation of Vishnu. He propagated the path of liberation throughout the world.
Tamahurvasudevamsham moksha vivakshaya avatirnam sutashatam tasyasid dvandvaparagam.
Meaning of the verse, he was called an incarnation of Vasudeva, not Sri Krishna as the son of his father Vasudeva, but the god Vishnu, because he did explain the path of liberation. He had 100 sons who were beyond Vedas as regards knowledge. 134. Rishabha was essentially Vishnu only, who had taken a partial incarnation in him to establish faith in the path of liberation in this world. 135. His biography has given in the fifth division of this great book. He had 100 sons who were well versed in the Vedas and sciences. 136. Among them, the eldest son was very pious, and I am going to tell his strange life story.
Tesham vai bharato shresthaha narayana parayanaha vikhyatam varshame tatyat namna bharatam adbhutam.
Meaning of the verse, the eldest of them was Bharat, who was devotee of of God Narayana, and after whose name this country is also is called Bharatavarsha. 137. The eldest son was called Bharat. He was a great devotee of Narayana, and this country, which is also called Bharatakanda, is so called after his name only. 138. He worshipped Narayana continuously with his mind, speech, and action. Though he was attending the duties of the state, he never forgot that he was Atman. 139. Just as it is only the earth which supports man, even though his feet fall in the straight line or irregularly, or his feet are hurt. 140. Thus, though he was looking after the affairs of administration and performing the necessary duties, he never failed in his faith in Atman. 141. This state is called the unbroken state, which is not disturbed even at the end of the eternity, and in which state man is very happy and he has not to take birth again. 142. Thus, Bharat was ruling most wisely and of good moral conduct, and he was one pointed in devotion to Narayana. I am going to tell you this in detail. Please listen. 143. The vast multitude of men is called Nar. Atman is the ayana or the place or basic state of this multitude, and therefore Atman is called Narayana. The vast multitude of men is called Nar. Atman is the ayana or the place or basic state of this multitude, and therefore Atman is called Narayan. Bharata was Parayana, means he was totally surrendered to him, which means that he negated his I-ness completely and became one with him. 145. Thus, this son of Rishabha was Bharat, whose name is filled in the whole world. 146. As Bharat had been born in this country, it is called Bharatavarsha. At the beginning of every Vedic rituals, etc., the name of Bharatakanda has to be uttered. 147. Even if a man is so identified with Atman, bad company is detrimental to him. In order to emphasize this fact, I am going to tell his life story, to which please listen. 148. By his name only he was famous, and therefore the country was and is identified with his name as Bharatakanda. But his greatness goes beyond the simple thing of the land being called Bharatakanda, of which I am going to tell you the whole history. Please listen.
Samukta bhogan tyaktve nirgatastapasa harim upasinastat padavim lebhe vai janma bhistripiti.
Meaning of the verse. He, having enjoyed the pleasures of the earth, left them and living only to serve Hari, got identity with Hari after three births. 149. He conquered the earth, the only limit being the sea on all sides, ruled the earth and enjoyed all the pleasures which are out of reach even of gods. 150. His wives and children are obedient to him. His minister and the whole nation was obedient to him. But even then, he gave up all his enjoyment. 151. Having left all his pleasures and possessions, he relinquished his power over the sea surrendered land and began to worship God Hari. 152. Those who are indulging in the pleasures of royal power never become desireless. But Bharat achieved an extraordinary thing. He sacrificed everything and began to serve God Vishnu, who is the husband of Lakshmi, the goddess of riches. 153. Actually, he could have attained the liberation in that life period, but he had to take rebirth, the reason of which I am going to tell you. 154. A female deer was standing in the waters of a river and drinking water. She was pregnant. Suddenly, she heard the roar of a tiger. She jumped due to great fear. 155. While jumping, however, she lost the child deer from her womb, which fell in the water. Bharat was taking bath in the river just nearby. He, being of a very tender heart, picked up the little one and brought it to the shore. 156. The female deer did not survive. Bharat found that the young one was helpless. Out of pity, Bharat began to rear up the young one at his ashram. Gradually, he formed a bond of affection about that young one. 157. That affection was so strong that while doing his daily routine of bathing, worshipping sun god, reciting the god's name, he was attending to that young one only. When he started meditation or japa, it was that young one the only object in his mind. He mentally saw that deer only. 158. He was remembering that little one every moment while he was sitting, eating, or going to sleep. If he did not see it any time, he used to jump suddenly. 159. Thus, he was attached to that young deer, but one day suddenly the yearling went away of its own free will. At this, Bharat was very unhappy, and in the pangs of that sorrow, he himself died. 160. You should understand that where there is great attachment, death is imminent. But death cannot touch a man who is free of all attachments. 161. Bharat was having mastery over penance. But how could death touch him? By finding the loophole of attachment, death attacked him. 162. When his body died, Bharat's mind was preoccupied with that little deer. This caused an immediate rebirth as a deer in his case. 163. Any attachment, even out of pity, causes the penance of yogi to be wasted. So, one who is without any attachment is the real sadhaka, the real aspirant. 164. Bharat met death while he was remembering that little one of the deer, and that is why he got the birth of deer. One who remembers the Lord Krishna while dying becomes one with the Lord. 165. The consciousness of a man takes the shape after his death according to the object which is fixed as an image in his mind at the time of his death. So one should always remember Sri Krishna. 166. Bharat was born in the body of the deer, but he maintained his memory of Lord Sri Krishna. We should therefore understand clearly that penance done in this birth is not wasted in future births also. 167. In the next birth, Bharat again became a human being, but he was so dull-witted in a peculiar way that people called him Jada Bharat. He remained apathetic to all the powers and illusions of Maya, and so he was living in freedom. 168. He made good and the incompleteness of all the earlier births. He merged his ego in the Atman and attained the state of Brahman. 169. I have thus told you the life story of Bharat, the eldest of the 100 sons of Rishabha. Now listen to the story of the remaining sons. You're on mute, Varshaji.
Sorry, I chanted the verse actually. तेषां नवनवद्वीपपतयोऽस्य समं ततः कर्मतन्त्रप्रणेतारः एकाशीतिर्द्विजातयः.
Meaning of the verse, out of them there were 9 who were ruling the 9 continents all over the world, while 81 sons belonging to the caste of twice born were the exponents of tantric actions. 170. 9 sons were appointed as the rulers of 9 continents, and 81 sons became the inceptors beginners of the path of karma. 171. Thus, 9 more who were remaining were the ornaments of good fortune itself and were the place of resort of the wisdom of Brahman. Now listen to their qualities.
नवाभवन् महाभागाः मुनयो ह्यर्थशंसिनः श्रमणावातरशनाः आत्मविद्या विशारदाः.
Meaning of the verse, 9 became rightly blessed sages. Having labored in the domain of self-knowledge, they propounded the highest truth and living naked became adepts in spiritual knowledge. 172. In the family of Rishabha, these 9 sons were the light to the family. They were the embodiments of triple Brahman, that is Satchidananda, and were the torch-bearing guides to the seekers on the path towards total liberation. 173. They had worked hard in the study of the self and had wiped out all bondage of karma or non-karma. They have become thus completely free of illusion of any kind and remained outside the framework of 4 states. Ashrams like bachelorhood, family man, forest dweller, and sannyasi. 174. They were masters of the proper use of words, example, Vedas, etc., and also masters of spiritual enlightenment. They were very skillful in the art of teaching disciples and were extremely alert at all the times. 175. They were personages of living spiritual knowledge, and their limbs were as if soft sprouts of self-knowledge. They were full archetypes of knowledge and self-established forms of knowledge of Brahman. 176. These munis has sewn a single thread of 10 directions into an invisible cloth by which they covered their bodies, and that thread was of the wind twisted to make a strong string which they tied around their middle. 177. Sky was their dress, and all the 9 had a cover of child Akash or the energy. Chid Akash or the energy. 178. They had tied together the prana and apana into one string and made a knot of it at the place of the navel. But suddenly the matter energy knot of the jiva was loose, and all the 9 had their own sacred thread. 179. They were ripe with self-realization and the glory of absolute Brahman. Now I will tell you the names of those 9 sages with regard to their greatness, with which please listen. 180. The death itself trembles if the name are even uttered, and the binding worldly life cannot face you if you remember their names. 181. O Parikshit, if their names are spoken with faith, the devotional people definitely become free. I shall tell you their names and their fame. Please listen.
कविर्हरिरन्तरिक्षः प्रबुद्धः पिप्पलायनः आविर्होत्रोऽथ द्रुमिलः चमसः करभाजनः.
Meaning of the verse, Kavi, Hari, Antariksha, Prabuddha, Pipalayana, also Avirhotra, Drumila, who was very beautiful, then Chamasa, who was flawless, and Karabhajana. 183. These are the 9 names by remembering which all the sins are destroyed. Such is their power. 184. I will tell you about their highest state of mind, which is called Paramahamsa. By their existence only this earth has become pure. These 9 sages who are the most sacred are worth worshipping.
एते वै भगवद्रूपम् विश्वं सदसदात्मकम् आत्मनो अव्यतिरेकेण Pashyamto vyacharan mahim.
Meaning of the ones, they who saw this universe with existence and non-existent as its own nature, and which is the form of God only themselves, without any difference, traveled on this earth. 185. These nine appear to be separate, but they are united as one in the divine body. They look at all other people, either good or bad, and also at themselves as one totality. 186. In them there is no evil at all, and therefore there is no scope to call them separately as saints, because being totally spirituality itself, they have no difference of duality at all. 187. When one realizes that God alone is everywhere, ruling everything, then the onlooker also does not remain separate, and therefore such a man looks up all the beings lower and higher in himself as well as in God. 188. Even the act of looking is not different from the onlooker. Such is the state of Paramahamsa, where to be, not to be, coming and going are all swallowed up. In this state, these nine sages roam freely in this world.
Apyahateshtagataya surasiddha sadhya gandharva nara kinnara nagalokan muktascharanti municharana bhutanatha vidyadharatvijagavam bhuvanani kamam.
Meaning of the verse, they go wherever they like, as their path is unobstructed. They freely roam over the regions of gods, siddhas, sadhyas, gandharvas, yakshas, men, kinnaras, nagas, monks, charanas, bhutanathas, vidyadharas, brahmins, and kamadhenus, divine cows, without attachment to any place. 189. They roam about freely without any desire throughout the Vaikuntha, Kailasa, the places of gods and siddhas, adepts, and the seven nether worlds and the 14 universes. 190. These have no attachment in their souls. Therefore, they are not stopped anywhere. By merely wishing, they can travel throughout the world in their most happy and desireless state.
I think we can stop over here for today. Beautiful readings. Anyone has any thought to share, please share.
Varshaji, only now I know this part of the story. Jada Bharata I have heard, but not the other sons, and that they were such great saints, sages, and their qualities.
Yes.
So it comes in Bhagavatam.
Correct. This is Bhagavatam 11th canto we are doing.
Yeah, I know.
And
So it
but
would have
this
come.
came in Narayaniam last week, which we had
Oh, I
seen.
missed it. Okay.
So we
I'll go
saw
back.
this, those who attended Narayaniam, we saw this story exactly in the same. And see
Okay.
how all our classes are linked actually. It's but
Yes.
one grace, it's not planned, but it is, it's not our plan, it's his plan. And it is. So when you said that, see the point number 180. The death itself trembles if their names are even uttered. And the
Yes.
binding worldly life cannot face you if you remember their names.
Their
That
names.
means that mantra, that 21 number mantra that we have to chant to be free. Kavir Harirantarikshah Prabuddha Pippalayanah Avirhotroth Drumilah Chamasah Karabhajanah. So with this remembrance, we remember so many shlokas. So
Yeah.
one more is added into this because it is Eknathi Maharaj himself saying like this, you remember this and become free. And then it is keeping in mind what they are. It is remembering their glories. It is remembering how free they are. So, yes, Lataji, this point is awesome. We should. So,
I
183
know.
continues. These are the 9 names by remembering which all the sins are destroyed. Such is their power. So,
Something I learned today.
very beautiful line you picked up. Anybody has any other thoughts?
One more Varshaji, point number 138. He worshipped Narayana continuously with his mind, speech, and action. Though he was attending the duties of the state, he never forgot that he was Atman.
Very true.
That
So
is
I think that's a yes, Jayanti ji. We should also carry out doing all our duties as a parent, as an office goer, as whatever relation, without forgetting ourselves. And with that same self-seeing in others, life will be much easier. Very beautiful point. Excellent.
Even the fact that, Bharata being almost a Jivan Mukta, he finally sort of gave in and went into trouble. So, how much ever strong your mind is, that weak point, that is, I think, bad company is detrimental to him.
Yes.
How important satsangas are.
Yes. Yes. This reminds me of last week's story that happened over here. So, to have a dog is the best thing as a watchman over here. So they got a dog. And then it so happened that I had to look after her. So earlier, I will not leave the room without taking the shower. And when I leave the room, I'll straight come to the altar. But now it so happened with that dog being there, you come even without taking the shower. First you attend the dog, then you release it, then you do all the things for it. Then if it has messed up somewhere, then you sit and collect that and you dispose all the things. And then you feed it and then you play with it. And then you take care, see his cage is all okay, otherwise wash the cage. And all that took my whole morning chunk. I did for 3 days. Fourth day, I said, please take it. This is not possible. Because then I said to Amma, I was chanting. Now all chanting is stopped. The whole morning business is stopped. And first to see that the dog is okay, whether the dog is fed, whether the dog is neat over there, or who has to do that. So if you have a pet, and over here, unlike in Singapore, seeing the sizes of the house you get, the dog, it's not like that. The dog is not allowed inside the house. It will be put outside. It cannot come inside. And it has a separate cage. It has to remain there. In the night, it will be left out in the compound open. A dog is not taken in the house over here. So those of we have pets, the concept in Kerala is completely different and you keep the dog there out. So this is just the own experience for a smallest thing, and then the pet came in that way and the pet has gone also. But I'm not saying anything, but for our smaller things also it's not possible. And most of who house the pets, how much they do for the pet. The pet is given the status of the child in the house and everything goes around the pet. Then what we have to actually do is forgotten because the major chunk is gone out over there. And if for a Mahatma like Bharatji who is realized, then what are we then? We are not a speck. So what dangers we are creating for ourselves? What a point, Veena, you have picked up. My God. Yes, beautiful. Today's readings were so wonderful. So many points. Amazing, amazing.
And even 164 point, Varshaji. One who remembers the Lord Shri Krishna while dying becomes one with the Lord. 164.
Yes, I did underline that. Correct. And the consciousness of a man takes the shape after his death according to that object.
That's like 8th chapter of Bhagavad Gita, Antakale cha mameva.
Yes, Maran. Awesome.
Whatever we remember at the last moment of our life.
Yes. So that means our Vedantas, that famous story, right? One miser man, he has put his son's name, Narayana, Vithala, everything he has named, so that, he chants Lord's name, but his mind is always on his money, this miser. Then when he was on the deathbed, he saw all his 4 sons out over there. You are here, you are. Then who is there in the shop? So he thinks of that and he leaves it. So in his head, so if you think that, okay, Lord has said a shortcut, we can remember him and we reach him at the end of my life, I will remember Lord. It doesn't come. until throughout the life you have practiced his name chanting only, then it can come. So it didn't happen to that man. He thought he was always thinking of his shop. He thought of his shop only. So what we think throughout the life, that only will come. Though it is so simple to remember Lord's name, it will not come at that time if we have not practiced. Very beautiful point you have taken there, teaching. Anybody with any different thought? Okay, so we stop at 190. Tomorrow's reading, I'm sorry, I missed who was going to do tomorrow.
Tomorrow I can do Varsha.
Janki. Okay. And then for this week, the other 2 days we are not doing, and we connect again next Monday. Okay. And in the meanwhile, if we can memorize this 21st mantra, it will be nice and calm. If not tonight, then at least by next Monday. If not before tomorrow's class, then at least by next Monday, write it somewhere, memorize it and come. As the Ovis we get, if we have our own collections of, because again to read and again to pick up the gem, the impact of what we have read today is our impact. So we should nurture that and welcome. Okay, Nikhila-ji,
Can
over
you,
to you.
sorry, Varsha-ji, sorry, can you repeat that mantra again? Because the
Yeah.
thing is not very clear in the print. So.
Yes, so number 21. कवेर् हरिरन्तरिक्षः प्रबुद्धः पिप्पलायनः आविर्होत्रोऽथ द्रुमिलः चमसः करभाजनः. Maybe I'll write it in the group and chant and send it.
Thank you. Yes, that will be better. Thank you.
So over to you, Nikhila-ji, for closing session.
ॐ पूर्णमदः पूर्णमिदं पूर्णात् पूर्णमुदच्यते पूर्णस्य पूर्णमादाय पूर्णमेवावशिष्यते ॐ शान्ति शान्ति शान्तिः हरिः ॐ श्रीगुरुभ्यो नमः हरिः ॐ श्रीकृष्णार्पणमस्तु
Thank you for awesome reading. See you all tomorrow.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Hari Om.
Varsha, that this thing is happening, no? Next week, 19th.